What's going on, everybody? Jacob Driver here. Welcome to another episode of Neighborhood Growth Spotlight, the series where I take your recommendations and analyze the growth of that neighborhood and show how it stacks up to those around it. Today's focus is on the Costa Canyon area. I know that's not technically a neighborhood, but we'll be looking at some of the subsets of neighborhoods in that area and how they compare to the cities and county around it. Today's episode was requested by a client of mine. They have a house over by the Costa Canyon area, and they wanted to know how their community has grown compared to the neighborhoods around it. So as I said, the spotlight area will be the Costa Canyon, and like I said, it's not technically a neighborhood, but what we'll be looking at is just the neighborhoods that are pretty close in proximity to the high school because they live in one of those and their community is a little small, and so I always like to broaden it by all the relevant neighborhoods that can be included in the sample size just to make things a little more relevant and a little more rounded off numbers wise. So like I said, the Costa Canyon area, all of you guys that have been from around here know what I'm talking about. Here's Stagecoach Park. The high school is right across the street, so we're just looking at the neighborhoods around it, Summerwalk, Arroyo Vista, things like that, close to Parkdale Lane, all that good stuff. As we get further out, we get into the Rancho Santa Fe, Alevinheim communities, and those aren't as relevant to our single-family 2,000 square foot home that we're looking at as our subject property here. There's roughly 1,200 homes in this sample set that we're looking at, all built around 1985 to 2000, the latest being 2003. So since my client's house is just around 2,000 square feet, we will be looking at all properties that are similar to that size. So looking at detached single-family residences, including all beds and baths in that subset, but I did limit it to 1,300 to 2,700 square feet. I like to do a little bit of a band around the relevant square footage just so that we're not super minimizing what we're looking at, but we're getting a good sample set that's all relevant sizes. And I feel like 700 square feet is a pretty good representation of that. If you get to the 1,000 square feet difference, that's too big of a difference in my opinion to be relevant in valuing the growth and things like that. But I think 700 square feet is a good amount to go each way to make things relevant. Looking at the median sales price, and we are back to the 3 months for each data point here in this video. So looking at the growth of our spotlight here, going from general to specific as normal, in this 1,300 to 2,700 square foot, looking at the county, the median sales price is $900,000, which is 20.8 year-over-year growth from last March. Looking at Carlsbad as a whole, the median sales price is 1.45, let's call it, which is 36.6% year-over-year. The zip code of 92009, right around that same 1.4. This is at 2.5, which is 32%. So this zip code is not the fastest growing in Carlsbad, but still outpacing the county. And if you look at our sample size, our spotlight here of the Costa Canyon area that we mapped out here in the previous slides, we're looking at 31% growth, right on track with the rest of the zip, but like I said, not as quickly paced as the Carlsbad, but still outperforming as compared to the county. And you can see in the last month, the spring season is among us. The amount on the market is probably growing, which is going to get prices to have a little bit of a jump because there's a lot more competition. And with rates going the direction they are, you would think it would stabilize the values, but it's looking like that demand is still definitely there for this area. While I was filtering the data, I found something that I thought was super interesting, and hopefully you guys do too, which was the effect that property size had on not just the value but the growth. As we all know, general rule of thumb, the bigger a property is or a home is, the more it goes up in value. Duh. But what we were seeing in this neighborhood is not only the values were going up, but the amount that it grew went up significantly as you got to those bigger property sizes, which isn't typically the case. Usually those smaller homes in a neighborhood will grow a little bit faster because the bigger properties will pull the value up, and you'll see faster growth in the smaller ones, especially from a price per square foot standpoint. But if you look at the sample size here, you'll see that overall our growth is 35.7%, so that's going to be an average of everything else. But as you kind of dive into the different subsets of square footage, the 1,000 to 2,000 square feet has only grown 12% year over year. That's the screen line. You can see it definitely hasn't grown as fast as some of the other communities or even bigger houses in this community. Looking at the 2,000 to 3,000, it's grown 64%, which is just crazy. You can see the demand difference between these smaller units and the bigger ones. And then as you get to the 3,000 square foot plus, you're looking at almost 77% year over year growth. Obviously, this is a little more volatile, but you can just see how big these numbers are and how quickly they've grown. And that's something that's not super traditional. So I thought it was interesting and thought it might be something that's worth pointing out to you guys. And that kind of got my mind to thinking why this might be. And the first thing that comes to my mind is, well, maybe the amount of sales is so much smaller in those brackets of size that it's skewing the data by a lot. But the further I dove into it, you're looking at the percentage of sales by property size. So it's all pretty even. It's almost pretty much a third, a third, a third for how the sales were distributed for the past 5 years here. So it doesn't have to do with the amount of sales. So I just think that that's something that's super interesting. If you have a house in this area that's over 2,000 square feet, you're doing great. You're looking at some serious value growth year over year or over the past 5 years. Thanks so much for watching this video, guys. Sorry about missing last week. Obviously, I was in Austin, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, but I'm going to try and be better about producing things ahead of time so that I can post things even when I may be inevitably out of town. But I really appreciate your guys' support through all this. And if you have a neighborhood that you'd like to be featured in a future video, please leave the name in a comment below. If you enjoyed this, please leave a like, and I appreciate your continued support and look forward to seeing you next time.